Welcome to the Ladies' Room, where politics meets women's issues, and we're not here to sugarcoat anything. We're diving headfirst into the stories that matter to women, from Washington power plays to battles over our basic rights. It's bold, it's unapologetic, and yeah, it's going to get messy. Because let's face it, this fight for equality always is. Grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's get into it. This is the Ladies' Room.
Hello. Oh, wow.
Welcome to the Ladies' Room,
again.
where politics meets women's issues, and we're not here to sugarcoat anything. We're diving headfirst into the stories that matter.
Okay, how about that? Hi, welcome to the Ladies' Room. I'm Allison, the Mighty Librarian, and I think it's just going to be a lady in the Ladies' Room. So, how's everyone doing today? Thank God the week is almost over. Deidre's not feeling too good, and she had a lot of stuff to do, and Vagabondia might be joining us in a little bit. She had a little one to be looking after, so for now, y'all are stuck with me. So today, we're going to be talking about how we're going to save democracy, because it really is going to come down to us to save it. It's been a scary... I think, how long has it been? 3 weeks now? It feels like, 6 months, but it's actually only been like 21 days or something to that effect. So it's been a long few weeks. So let's get into it. So I actually found out something year 3. It does feel like that, doesn't it? So I actually learned some things this week that I was really surprised about, but it makes me very, very, very hopeful, and it made me feel a whole lot better. Maybe it's hopium, and a lot of people have been saying what we're going to be talking about, but this kind of gives you the empirical evidence that it actually works. So what I wanted to start with was let me pull it up. If I could get it to load. The internet has is done for the week too, so just give it a second as it gives me the blue circle of death. There we go. Oops. There we go. So, the nature of power. Now, Erica Chenoweth, I think I'm saying it correctly. She is a political scientist at Harvard. And don't worry, we're not going to go delving into her research, because while I am that kind of nerd, a lot of you are not. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So anyway, Erica Chenoweth has been around for a while. A lot of her information has been out there for years. Just people are kind of rediscovering it a bit. So she studies nonviolent political movements. And this is probably about 11, 12 years ago. From studying nonviolent political movements, she is looking at the data sampling and how change happened within not even just other countries. She draws from examples within the United States as well, that it only takes 3.5% to get guaranteed change to happen. So 3.5% of the population of the US is roughly, depending on which numbers you look at, it's between like 11 and 12 million people. So what do these 11 million people have to do? Everything we're doing: protesting, going on strike, making your voice heard, flooding Congress's phones. And whenever 3% of the population reliably, there is always change. And the fascist government or authoritarian government topples. In fact, one thing that I thought was really interesting is that nonviolent protesting is twice as successful than violent protesting. And the general reason behind it is because with nonviolent protesting, you draw in more people from a broader coalition, whereas people who are going to engage in violent civic engagement are usually, it's harder to get people to commit violence and certain scales of violence as well. So this is the nature of power. It's an interview. I'm going to play a really short clip of a video that really introduced me to this chick. And if I could find it. Okay. So I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. And we're not going to listen to the whole thing, but it gives a little bit better. Okay, here we go.
Scientist Dr. Erica Chenoweth. This is by Rebecca Solnit. It came out on the 8th. I've been meaning to talk about it for a few days, but the breaking news this morning about the Trump administration ignoring orders from a federal judge has spurred me to want to talk about this immediately and to no longer delay. If you don't have time to read the whole article, I'm going to summarize it here. Briefly, before I get into it, Dr. Erica Chenoweth is the originator of the 3.5% rule. I've talked about it extensively. They are a Harvard PhD political scientist, and this is what they study: how to topple authoritarian regimes with nonviolent resistance. And after studying dozens and dozens and dozens of successful attempts to thwart coups and to overturn fascism, overturn authoritarian regimes, Dr. Chenoweth discovered that it's not the courts, it's not the legislature, it's 3.5% of the populace of that country turning out to protest, taking to the streets for as long as it takes, walking off the job for as long as it takes. And what they found is that very quickly those regimes topple. It takes a nationwide coordinated effort for 3.5% of the citizenry to show up. That is what works to stop fascism. That is what works to take down authoritarian regimes. I first heard about Dr. Chenoweth's work the day after the election, and I dove into it, and I really want to share their latest interview with you. I'm going to break down a few key elements from this article, but if you have time, please go read the whole thing. It is 9 minutes of your day well spent. The best study on the subject of stopping authoritarianism, in my opinion, suggests that in the long term, institutions really can't save us, that civil society and mass mobilization are a more potent check on a backsliding democracy in the long term than relying on institutional checks and balances alone. That's exactly what we're finding right now, as Elon Musk is completely usurping the power of our legislative branch, and they are not holding him in check. As the Trump regime openly defies orders from federal judges, we see the judicial branch failing to hold him in check. So these words are what political scientist Erica Chenoweth told me when I asked them if we could have a conversation about the current constitutional crisis/coup attempt and what we can do about it. Chenoweth is a hugely influential scholar of nonviolent social change, best known for their empirical research that not only documents what makes civil resistance work, but documents that it does work. It works, y'all, extremely effectively. Dr. Chenoweth directs the Nonviolent Action Lab, which studies how people have built movements and developed strategies to resist authoritarianism successfully, and they document how nonviolence can be effective. Their work shows that nonviolent resistance is actually about twice as effective as violent. Rebecca asked Dr. Chenoweth, when you look at what Musk and Trump are doing that is illegal because it's beyond the powers granted to the administrative branch and damaging long-standing institutions and relationships, what does that tell you about their understanding or lack of understanding of these systems and entities and the nature of their power? Dr. Chenoweth says, it tells me that Trump and Musk believe and fear that they cannot implement their policies and plans without the cooperation, obedience, and help of people in various pillars of support. Indeed, what Trump and Musk seem to have learned during the first Trump administration is this: subverting institutional checks and balances, subordinating key agencies, ignoring Congress's lawmaking authority, dominating the media and information environment, and eliminating oversight and accountability. In other words, pulling off a power grab is what is required to complete their agenda. The author says here that the judicial and legislative branches are failing to shut down this coup attempt. So what hope is there for our society? Are there particular tactics of civil resistance that are useful or relevant in this moment we are now living in the US? And please listen here. Dr. Chenoweth says, among the most urgent work in a moment of potential backsliding is to both protect the most vulnerable people from direct harm while also upholding the rule of law. If you don't defend the rule of law, you lose it, and the terrain becomes much more uncertain and treacherous. Most urgently, this means filing suit against every move that appears to be illegal and or unconstitutional. This is exactly what our state's attorneys general are doing. This is exactly what the ACLU is doing. They're doing good work. We need to be funding and encouraging them. This article came out before the Trump regime openly defied a federal judge, but Chenoweth says we are seeing some of this happening already with regards to executive orders and some of the firings of inspectors general, etc. Lawsuits are being filed. In fact, if you go to justsecurity.org, you can see every single suit that has been filed against this regime. There are a lot of attorneys and legal minds doing a lot of good work right now to try and protect us. Beck asks, what are the precedents you think of, and what do they tell us about our possibilities and powers in this crisis? Are there coups and other crises in other times and places to look to understand how we need to respond right now, to understand what we are going through and what we need to do to be successful in fighting back? Dr. Chenoweth explains that we've been backsliding for about 15 years, what is called the third wave of autocratization, where we have been in a democratic recession for quite a while now. It's not just us, we're seeing the rise of authoritarianism and democratic backsliding all over the world. But the doctor says, of course, we have hundreds of cases from history that provide valuable lessons, including emancipatory campaigns here in the US about how to defeat both backsliding and even full authoritarianism through civil resistance. Best study on the subject, you can click and read it when you go to the website, suggests that in the long term, institutions really can't save us, that civil society and mass mobilization are a more potent check on a backsliding democracy in the long term than relying on institutional checks and balances alone. Chenoweth goes on to say, in 2022, I wrote about how the US civil society might prepare for a moment like this one, based on our analysis of what other countries have done, other moments in history. What it's going to take is us, the American people, building what other pro-democracy movements of the 20th century were successfully able to create, a united democratic alliance. This is a coalition of pro-democratic grassroots and grass tops, civic groups, political leaders, business leaders, faith leaders, union and workers.
Okay, so I know that was a little bit long of a clip, but if I could get this down, there we go. So I know it was a little bit long of a clip, but it's a really good example, and it gave me a lot of hope that we can save this. We can, and what we're already doing is enough, but it's what we're supposed to be doing. So, you know, when you hear of a protest, go to it. Call your Congress people. Call them. If you watch the Tony Michaels podcast, he's already shown you this clip, but I'm going to show it to you again because I think it's important. Then this is, I promise this is the last one for a while. Yeah, let me.
Flooded my phones. Do you think they really thought they were going to change my mind? No. But they constantly and consistently, Republicans flood the phones far more than people who are not Republicans flood the phones. And it does have an effect because you really start to understand the strength and the scale of what you are up against. Republicans need to get that message too, because it skews our whole environment to the right when the constant pressure is coming from one place. Like, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but people who watch Fox News all day and right-wing media all day call their members of Congress, and they tend to call members far more consistently and regularly than everybody else does. And that really matters because phone calls are one of the biggest ways that members measure, it's not just numbers, it's how they measure enthusiasm. It's how they measure how much they are mobilizing around a certain issue. And the more they see them mobilizing, the more careful they will be in terms of not making those people more upset. And they will get pressured into acting or hedging, what have you. So hop on 5 calls, even the score, because this needs to be a regular practice, the way it is. Now, one thing I will say is that lately, really this week, all of the phone calls that many of you have already started to make into Congress are starting to have an effect. I very weirdly do have relationships with Republican members of Congress. I think they find it to be like a novelty, like kind of funny or whatever. So sometimes I'll ask them, like, what's up? And I do think that the volume of calls this week has absolutely started to change the tide. Like, members, Democratic members and Republican members alike, we're actually getting a high volume of calls. And if that sustains itself, we're already starting to see the tide turn a little bit, but the pressure needs to stay on.
Okay, so that's really important, advice from AOC and Alexandria Ocasio-Crochet. Yeah, you know what? I started knitting like years and years ago, and it's really great at helping you quit smoking because it gives you something to do with your hands, and you get in a rhythm, and it's kind of like I don't want to say, it's kind of like Zen-like because you just get into the rhythm of it. And anyway, so calling works. And I was kind of skeptical too. Even though I know how their phone systems work, I know that when you call their offices, they listen to their messages. Or somebody is listening to their messages. They filter out all the death threats and all the nasty ones. And then they compile them, and they I don't know exactly how they listen to them, but even if they're not listening to them, their staffers are like, my dude, there are 1,000 calls about this, 1,000 calls about that. And like AOC says, when their lines are flooded, that has an impact. So write letters, write emails, call them. I've been calling my representative daily. And when I say like call them, don't be a dick. Like, be respectful, be, civil. Don't be like how MAGA can be at times. But let them know how upset you are about this, and what it is that in particular that is really troubling you. What made me lose my mind was that there was an article about how they might touch our tax refunds. I need my tax refund. Not only just because I need it, it's my money. You get a tax refund because you overpaid your taxes. So those taxes come from my wages. So I worked for them. It's not like they can't even say it's like not try to say like I'm not owed. No, I am owed something because I overpaid the government. Give me back my goddamn money. Oh, you got yours? Okay, so that's good. So I lost my mind, and I gave my representative a piece of my mind. And my representative's a Republican. He's in his freshman year, so I have no idea. I'm assuming he's like everybody else. He's probably, a Trump sycophant, but I've called him every single day, Monday through Friday, for the last 2 weeks. Because it just bothers me. Not that I'm afraid some like misfit incel is going to steal my identity. I don't like, it's one thing for the government to have my information to pay me a tax refund or give me a stimulus check, or, for 100 other appropriate reasons for them to have my money. But they downloaded our data, even though they said they didn't. I know they did. They downloaded all of our data. And that is some that unelected, these people, we have no idea who they are. There's no accountability, no nothing. And so anyway, with that, I lost my head, and I was just like, my dude, you need to do something, because this ain't cool. So, oh yeah, Donald Trump has never overpaid his taxes. Like, it's only the middle class and the poor that overpay their taxes. And it just like, it really bothers me, and I'm sure it bothers you all too. It pisses me the fuck off to see the richest man in the world saying, okay, we're going to cut Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security, and you're not going to get tax refunds. I know that's not true now, and it's like, you have no idea what those programs do for people. Like, there's some people who depend on food stamps, SNAP. There are people that depend on Medicaid that are going through treatment and procedures that they need to live. And you are the richest man in the world from your yacht telling poor people that they can't like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Fuck you. I have a serious problem with that. I have a serious, serious problem with the richest man in the world doing. And not only that, he's not even elected. Not even elected. So, some asshole that did get elected said that he could just go tinkering in government systems and tinkering with our data and saying what should be cut, which, excuse me, sir, Congress appropriated that money. Congress appropriates the money. So nothing should be cut. If Congress wants to pass the budget and say, you know what, we're not going to pass Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all that good stuff, then that's one thing. I mean, that's some bullshit too. But like, you can't just, when it's already been appropriated, you can't just say, you know what, fuck off. No Medicaid for you. And you know, so if this upsets you, like it upsets me, call your representatives daily. Send them emails daily, because AOC says it matters. It matters. And she is not going to tell you some advice that isn't, isn't legit. One other thing that, while we're on the topic of AOC, is if you live in New York 14, which is her district, if pass this along to immigrants, whether they're documented, undocumented, or, friend of a friend is documented or undocumented, her district, she's asking anybody living in her district to register with her office. And if ICE is bothering you or you get picked up, register with her office so her office can help. I didn't get a whole lot of info on exactly how they're going to help, but, she's no moron, and I'm sure she has something that can be effective if she's trying to put that word out there. So that's New York District 14. And, Amethyst. What exactly Amethyst posted about they took back? What is that in Alabama? Is that like their tax refunds, or they did keyword searches? Oh, Cynthia Price. Elon and his incel kids didn't do any audits. They did exactly. They're not auditing. They did keyword searches for things that have nothing relevant. Energy assistance. That is twisted. There's I wish I had the link to this. There's a UN report. I originally heard this from some source that wasn't like so discreditable that like I immediately dismissed it, but wasn't credible enough where I took it as word. So I looked it up, and I wish I had saved the link. There's a UN, I forgot the title of it, but it's basically talking about the poverty levels within the world and within the United States. And people in Alabama live along the same poverty lines as some what we call third world countries, living on $2 a day, which I don't know how you make that happen. But apparently people are doing that. Yeah, the land of the free, right? Living on $2 a day. When people in this country aren't living in poverty, like the equivalent of countries that we quote unquote shithole countries, then I'll say we're a great country. I love my country. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. I care about it. But at the same time, like, we can't be the greatest country, call ourselves the greatest country in the world, and have such poverty and health issues. And, that is so sad to know that people live like that. And I live right near Alabama. So, sometimes I've had to go in for a whole bunch of different reasons. But one thing that I noticed, that when you're driving on the state highways, not the interstates, a lot of times you'll go through these tiny towns, and the homes and the buildings are in such terrible condition. They're dilapidated. The roads are dilapidated. And it's like, it doesn't have to be like this. And they're leeching off the government. Wow. And I love how they try to say that the blue states are like the social. Yeah, the blue states are funding the red states' socialism. If New York and California just all of a sudden stop paying their taxes, which is kind of impossible to do, but let's say it was possible. Let me tell you, some people would take notice because 21st century suffragettes. Have to check that out. I like Major or Jetta. Yeah, I also watched The Bulwark, and he was Tim Miller was interviewing. She's on MSNBC, but right now she's like on sabbatical of sorts, like reporting from the field about the sentiment of the country. Gosh, I can't think of her name, but anyway, they played a clip of one of her interviews with somebody who he was the father of somebody who speared a Capitol police officer during Jan 6. And he said that he would die for Donald Trump. And I'm just like, yeah, too bad he doesn't give a fuck about you. Does not give a fuck. Would not know you from like anyone. Alex Wagner. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Alex Wagner. And I was just like kind of floored, like, wow. I think there's literally one person I would like without hesitation die for, and I birthed her. So certainly not dying for a politician, but I definitely will back up our our Democratic. And you know what? If you live in a blue state, call your reps to do something. You know what? Maybe there's stuff going behind the scenes that we don't see, but you know what? They're missing the messaging, and like they're not being very good at they're not being very good at motivating the base. Like Trump motivates his base. He has people willing to die for him. So, they've got to do something too. So with your blue reps, I started sending our senators, which are Democrats, letters. Yeah, Chris Murphy is a good one. Yeah, and a lot of the Senate, maybe a lot's a strong word, but a lot's a strong word, but more and more are Brian Schatz from Hawaii. He's starting to do the Tuberville where he's gonna hold up confirmations of what he was doing, what Tuberville was doing the last couple of years. So I don't think realistically Democrats can't stop it, but they can definitely slow it down. And then in the same, going back to the Alex Wagner interview from The Bulwark, she also said, I think, we might just have to hit rock bottom for people to really realize what's going on, which is sad because I really don't want us to hit rock bottom. I don't want to hit rock bottom. That's what a terrible thing for my child. And I'm sure you guys all have kids, young kids. What a terrible thing, so, but that might be what we need to really understand what's going on. And like that clip I played, once the courts have been successfully ignored, once Congress is ignored, it's with every norm and institution that gets toppled, it becomes harder and harder to reclaim our power back. Yeah, that's a good question. Where is the bottom? I have no idea where the bottom is. And it's scary to think about. Where is the bottom? How far is bottom stumbling into a violent conflict? Is bottom a depression? Is bottom all of the above? So it's kind of scary to think about what is our bottom and how do we, I'd like to think we're nowhere there when we do hit bottom, but there's a lot of people who are at the bottom and they don't even know they're at the bottom. So I also heard a clip of a focus group. Focus groups, polls are kind of bullshit, but focus groups are a whole other can of worms, because that you're talking, there's somebody interviewing people face to face and they're talking and explaining what they mean and what they like and what they don't. Whereas questions that are asked on a survey can often in themselves be biased and asked in a way that would help you more likely to answer it one way or the other. So when it comes to focus group, it's a lot more honest of a gauge of the public. So, but the thing with focus groups is that it's harder to say, like 50% of the population feels this way or 50% of the it's not as quantifiable as giving out a questionnaire. Anyway, I digress. So, so they started at, the fuck around and find out of MAGA. So a lot of farmers are starting to feel if they haven't felt the rug pulled out from under them, they're fearing the rug being pulled out from under them. And, they were cool with, they didn't think they regret voting for Trump, and they were cool with other people getting hurt. They didn't think they would get hurt. The leopard face, let's try that again. The leopards eating faces party is now eating faces, and they're shocked by it. And they didn't think their faces would get eaten, but they're totally content to watch, their libtard friend get their face eaten. Yeah, that's why, Cynthia, that's why I like the Bulwark a lot, because they have a whole podcast devoted to the focus group. Some of the answer, I really wonder how we got here. I really wonder how we got here, how people get to the level of, I don't know if it's hatred, but bigotry. And, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like people at one point genuinely believed that there were litter boxes in schools, they hear one story and they're just like, yep, they're being identified as cats. They're it's so stupid. I hope they see the light sooner, because I'd really like to not have us as a country hit rock bottom. I just like to be efficient like that. I'd rather I'd rather some of the country learn critical thinking skills, or if they already use their put on your thinking caps, kids, Hi, yeah, you made a live show. Yeah, some of the focus groups, it's hard to hear some of the answers. You're absolutely right. It's really hard to hear some of the answers from the Bulwark, especially people who voted for Trump all 3 times, because they can be out there. They have some wild, well, to me, they're wild. Oh God. Speaking of the litter boxes. So I guess, people thinking litter boxes are a thing. I was watching, my daughter and I watched this one YouTube channel, and it's really he's just reading memes and Reddit threads, but he does it really funny. So I don't know, it's almost like reading a story. And there's this TikTok that he played, where someone in their school, this is a parent talking about their kid's school. someone in their school, a parent thought that there was like a they were providing litter boxes. And so like it just spiraled into this big thing. So her daughter wore cat ears the next day just to like, oh man, freak people out. That's something my daughter would do. And I get a phone call, but it kind of makes you want to like just put a litter box somewhere and take a dump in it or something at this rate, just to like see their reaction. Oh goodness. Oh, I know. And I like to remind people, especially trolls in my comments, like they're, like, we need to cut things. I'm like, oh, I hope your benefits aren't part of it. Yeah, let's cut the tax cuts for the wealthy that, or the trickle-down economics. That is, trickle-down economics is like the big, even as a kid, I remember saying to my parents something about it. Because when I was a kid, we had 5 channels. 6 if the wind was blowing the right way. I didn't have cable till I left for college. Okay. So I was limited. So the things I had to choose from usually were news, golf, WWE, sometimes baseball. So news was often the best choice that I had. So I watched a lot of news as a kid. So like when, I hear something, I'd ask my parents to explain it, and trickle-down economics was one of them. And I was like, well, why don't they just give you the money to begin with? That seems like, and I said it like how a little kid, like it just didn't make sense. Like, why go through all that and these people think like, oh, you give a billionaire all this money and it's going to be invested back into you. It's like, when has that ever happened where the billionaires got tax cuts and, oh my God, wages went up? Wages haven't gone up in 20 years. I was making $7.25 20 years ago. And that was like a part-time gas station job. And now they're probably still making that. That was a little bit more than minimum wage 20 years ago. But, it's like you're hoping that maybe they'll give you some scraps. Like, and the Midas Touch did this really funny bit, but they were like, please, sir, can I have some more? Can I have just a little bit? Like, no, why don't they just pay you a few dollars extra an hour? I mean, it's like a lot of paying a livable wage doesn't even really indent into their you know what? Henry Ford was an awful human being, but there was one thing he knew that he was very smart with. And he knew that if he treated his employees well and paid them a good wage, you know what they get turned into? Brand loyal customers. Wouldn't that be like, and he was a bigoted racist, wanted to go into full-blown eugenics programs, and he knew that. So I don't understand why we're where we are, because all right, a few things I wanted to also talk about was let me get this on the screen. A lot of the things that I talked about today, you're probably like, I'm not going to remember that. Well, that's okay, because you don't have to. We're going to show you on my link tree, which I'll put in the comments, but let me get this up. There we go. So a lot of what we talked about today is in my link tree. So this is a video I made on how to find your representative's information. Now, when I did this, Congress.gov was giving me error messages. So it shows you how to go to House.gov, House of Representatives, and Senate.gov for your senators. Maybe Congress.gov works, maybe it doesn't. And there's a lot of different ways you can get this information, lots of different apps. I like to send y'all to like the source, because that's the librarian in me. Go directly to the source, but also it's a government resource that your tax dollars go to. So A, use it, but B, especially with this administration, if they're doing something funny with it or take it down. It kind of lets you know that something ain't right. So I have the video from AOC if you want to watch it again in its entirety. This is in a screenshot tutorial, and then 5 calls is one way that you can call your Congress people as well. It gives you talking points, issues, and whatnot. So that's there. And then I have information on the 3.5% rule, a little bit about what that is and how that's the threshold that it's a nonviolent political movement is likely to see if it's 3.5% of the population. This is a TED Talk that Erica Chenoweth gave about 10 years ago, but I heard it was really good. I did not watch it, but I did not have time to. And we're going to get back to General Strike US. Head to my Substack if you want to support the Library of Democracy. Become a paid subscriber. It's really cheap. It's $5 a month or $35 a year, which is less than half if you go with a yearly. And there's tons of stuff that is there for free as well. And you can buy us a coffee to support it. This is our bookstore link at bookshop.org. I really hate Jeff Bezos at the moment. So bookshop.org helps out independent bookstores. And if you use this link, it has the books that we recommend. And if you use that link, we might get a small commission out of it. They don't sponsor the show, but it is an affiliate. And then, of course, Tony's, because he lets us use his software. So we have to give him a big, big thank you. And then also check out our Substack. And I forgot about Egg Watch. So I started a thing called Egg Watch. And because people have been taking photos of the egg prices in their area. So this is the intro to Egg Watch. And if you want to submit egg prices in your area, I have a little form that you can fill out that lets you upload a photo, the egg price, and city and state. You don't have to put your name or anything. It's completely anonymous. I can't tell who sends what. But if you'd like to send that in, that's on my Substack. And I only have a couple of posts, but we have one from Pennsylvania at $5.46 a dozen. And in Georgia, it is also $5.46 a dozen. So I've seen around that, like in some places, it's like $10, $12, $13 a dozen. So if you want to submit your expensive egg prices, I would love to see them. And let us go back to one more thing. General Strike US. I hope that's showing up. Let me just make sure. Yep. Okay. So I found these two things separately, but they coincided. This is an organization. It is on my link tree, so you don't have to like scramble to write anything down. These people are organizing workplace strikes. You can commit to the strike by filling out a card. It gives you information on protests around the country, but it's trying to organize link ups and coalitions to make, and they are using the 3.5% rule as well. So I wanted to put their information out there. They have a Discord that's really interesting too. So you can find their link in my link tree. The link tree of theirs is in my link tree. So a link tree of link trees. So I hope I think that's it. So that's all the grifts I have for you. $5.46 a dozen. Yeah, that seems like a lot of states are $5.46 a dozen or higher. Yeah, a lot of states are still at $7.20. Grift you very yeah. The grift that I don't really get any. I mean, if you decide to become a supporter on Substack or buy me a coffee or anything like that, yes, that is a little bit of a grift. But I'm a librarian, so I don't work for the federal government, but I am not very popular with MAGA, so not me personally. My profession isn't very popular with MAGA, so you never know. At any point, I could be. So, gotta find a side gig somewhere just in case. And thank you to everybody who has supported, whether you're here every week or, or a paid contributor. I really appreciate it. We don't become a million subscribers overnight. So, and we hit 1,800. So the road to 2,000 is going strong. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Let's get to 2,000. Some people are like, yeah, the road to 100,000. We're the road to 2,000. So hit the subscribe and like button. Woo! Yeah. I was happy to hit 1,800. The likes, run our reruns, while you sleep, hear my voice, soothing. So we get the watch hours. Project 2000. That's true. Project 2000. And then watch somebody with 2 million subscribers season oh, you you little subscriber peasant. No, I'm just being silly. I hear my voice. Yeah. No, because I fall asleep a lot of times on the couch, watching YouTube or and I have autoplay. So a lot of times I end up on something that is so far from what I started watching. So, if you're like me who has the autoplay on and falls asleep watching YouTube on the television, Lord knows who you could be listening to. That's an excellent question. I'm not smart enough to make that happen, but that's a cool idea. I like the way you think. I'm definitely not smart enough to get some. Oh, but maybe I should, so we can get to 2,000. Subscribe. So we're hitting the top of our hour. When it's just me, I talk fast, so I get through stuff really quickly. You can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take the talking fast out. You know what I mean? Well, with that, I want to thank you all for coming. Yeah, that'll be I watched the Y-Files. I don't know if you all hear the Y-File watch the Y-Files at all, but he's like a storyteller of different urban legends, conspiracy theories, that kind of thing. And he did one on subliminal messaging. And there are artists that did it on purpose. They had, when you play their record backwards, it's a whole other song. And I was just that is so, how do you come up with that? And this is before really digitization is existing. So I would just I would love to be able to do something subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe. And so, but anyway, so you guys have a great rest of your week. Happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. I'm gonna have a good day with my Valentine, my daughter. We're gonna get sushi for lunch because she's off and I took the day off. Because I have to get some shit done. There's a lot of stuff around the house that needs to get done, so I took a day off. But have a great Valentine's Day and great weekend, and I'll be posting some videos that I'm working on later. So hopefully maybe we'll have one of the gals back. So it's not just a lady in the ladies' room. And so I will see you all later. Have a great night and thanks for tuning in.